Question 11. Explain how two black dogs can breed to produce 3 black pups and 1 white pup. Okay, the answer for 11. Two black dogs can breed to produce 3 black pups and 1 white pup if the parents both carry a recessive allele for a white coat. The recessive allele will only produce a visible trait when combined with another recessive allele. So if we take a look at this chart, we can see that the father carries the dominant allele and the recessive allele. Same thing with the mom. She has the dominant allele and the recessive allele. So our first pup that's produced is going to have 2 dominant alleles. So it will be black. The second one is going to have 1 dominant, 1 recessive, so it would be black as well. Third pup has 1 dominant, 1 recessive, but the fourth pup is going to have 2 recessive alleles. So we're going to end up with 1, 2, 3 that are black, but the fourth one would be white. Okay, question 12. Explain how selective breeding has affected the development of domesticated animals such as dogs and racehorses. Selective breeding has enabled the development of animals that display desired characteristics. Only animals that have the desired characteristics are allowed to breed in the hopes that their offspring will also display the desired characteristics. For example, racehorses are able to run faster than the average speed of horses that are not bred for speed. Now, if you take a look right on the colony, selective breeding is a process used regularly with your various animals. The one we see the most with the best examples are cattle. Now, if you take a look at this picture here, this is a Photoshop picture of what an auroch would have looked like beside average size men from today. Now, we haven't had an auroch for approximately about 700 years, but all the cattle that live today are descendants of this animal. So early cattle breeders used auroch, and it was a very large, strong, wild animal, and they kept selective breeding until they came up with traits that were desirable for them. So we ended up with smaller cattle such as this one. This is a horned Hereford. But then we've selectively bred animals to exhibit certain traits, and then we refine them even more. So this one is a horned Hereford. This one is a polled Hereford, P-O-L-L-E-D, Hereford. You can see that this has been selectively bred until this uh, breed of animal did not have horns. So there's a huge example of different types of different types of cattle. Here's a Highland steer. Now, another great example of selective breeding is dogs. Now, all dogs are descended from wolves, and they've continued to breed the animals for selective traits. We end up with animals like the Labrador Retriever, and here's a Maltese Poodle. And some people even go to extremes and try to miniaturize their dogs even more till you end up with something like a toy Chihuahua.
Question 13. Describe the application of genetic technology in the production of cloned animals such as Dolly, the cloned sheep. How might this technology have a positive effect? How might it have a negative effect? While cloning is the genetic technology used to produce identical copies of a parent organism, positive aspects of the technology may include the large-scale production of meat and milk, as well as the increased production of pharmaceuticals that these animals may be created and engineered to create. Negative aspects include unsuccessful pregnancies, birth defects. The reduced genetic diversity of cloned organisms can make them more susceptible to disease. And ultimately, it comes down to the very big ethical debate whether humans should be playing in God's kingdom when it comes to the genetics. Okay, question 14. Question 14. How does an understanding of heredity allow animal breeders to develop animals with desirable traits? An understanding of heredity allows animal breeders to develop animals with desired traits through observing the patterns of inheritance and then selecting those animals that have the desired traits to be the parents of the next generation in the herd or flock. Question 15. A. List 3 ways in which crops have been improved through genetic engineering. In what other ways might crops be improved through genetic engineering? Uh, some examples of genetic engineering could be like herbicide resistance in canola. So, on the colony, it's commonly used is the Roundup Ready canola. It's a very unique breed of canola because they could actually use broadleaf herbicide to kill all the weeds in that field, but it still doesn't harm the canola. Other things that have been done is the introduction of Bt toxin into other crop plants and bacteria that's been engineered to produce medicines such as insulin. Some other ways that crops might be improved would be by introducing genes for tolerance to the cold, shade, or drought. Uh, B. Consider the First Nations and Métis perspective on living holistically. How would a holistic understanding affect your answer to part A? Now, First Nations and Métis perspectives in holistic living would probably not accept the idea of genetic engineering as being compatible with living in harmony with Mother Earth. These mechanistic ways of changing organisms through genetic engineering are different from the ways of selective breeding, such as selecting the best corn for planting in the next season. Also, altering the genes of an organism through genetic engineering may be seen as interfering with the interconnectedness amongst all things and with the balance of the world. Question 16. What types of observation and experimentation led us to a better understanding of how traits are expressed? Uh, the number and characteristics of offspring produced from particular crosses of organisms could be something that's observed. You may also think of observations that offspring resemble their parents and how this knowledge could be applied to develop breeds with those desired traits. And last question, number 17. What are the benefits to understanding how genetic material functions? It is important to understand how genetic material functions in order to breed livestock or crop species for agriculture. Understand how genetic material functions also helps us to understand and treat inherited diseases. Another benefit of understanding how genetic material functions is that we better understand the interactions between organisms and can help protect biological diversity.